Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today I'm going to be doing some more midsummer pruning. I'm going to start today by pruning my money tree. Here's a look at my money tree. It's been growing well over the summer. So the trunk comes up, it divides from 1 into 2 here. And this is kind of boring. It has no taper. It's got a slight curve to it, but I think on this tree, this is a better natural leader for the tree. So if I maybe even change the front to over here and get rid of this back trunk altogether. I think it's just too thick. I can get taper here. Coming up, I go from thick to thinner. And I think that's important on this tree, is to keep that taper going, because it has a lot of taper. And this kind of spoils it, I think. It's just getting too thick and it looks out of place. So today I'll be pruning that part of the tree off. I'm looking at the tree, and if we look at the old wounds on the tree, because I'll be cutting off a fairly major branch here, it'll be very similar to this chop on the top. And I'll show you a close-up of that. Here's a look at that large wound. So you can see there's a woody core at the center, and then it's starting to heal around that. So it'll take quite a few years before it totally closes over some of these large wounds. You can see some of the ones on the back here, some larger wounds that have totally healed over. So there's a big one there. So it's very interesting. Another one down here. It's interesting how they heal over time. So after cutting this branch off, I will have quite a large wound here that'll take quite a few years to heal over. To remove this trunk line is a fairly big cut, so I'm thinking either Tom's ratcheting pruners or the saw. I'll see if the ratcheting pruners if they open up enough. I think they do. I think that would be a good choice for a tool. I have this Japanese pull saw, which would cut it quite nicely also. So either of those tools would work nicely. I think I'll try these. They're a little more precise. So I've got a wound on top, so if I cut here, I'll kind of be sort of integrating this cut with the existing one. I think that'll be a good place to cut it. So here I go. I'm going to cut on the angle like this. All right, you know what we say, big cut coming up. So here I go. I'm going to try and cut it right across here. So these don't open up quite far enough, but I think I can cut it in sections. So here we go. So that's through quite a bit of it. Now I can raise these up, cut through a little more. Almost there. Here I go. Okay, so that's off. So these do root as cuttings. In fact, this whole tree is a cutting. I had a larger one before and the bottom started rotting away. So I cut the top off, which is this tree, and rooted it. So this would root quite nicely as a cutting. Okay, so here's a look at the cut. I need to do some cleanup. It's not... You can see if that heals over, I'll have kind of a lump in this section. So I've got to smooth it out. So I'll come in and do a bit of carving. Probably the saw would have been the better tool to do this with. But this works. Now, let's see. I think I need to come down quite far, making this wound larger but a better shape. So I treat these trees as succulents. They're They don't like a lot of water, but they like regular watering. So you've got to keep them kind of, the soil moist but not wet. And it's best to let them dry out between waterings a bit. That's better. I think that's probably about as good as I can get that cut, I think. Maybe a little more off of here. Big wound to heal. Come on. Okay. Yeah, I think that's looking good now. I am going to seal this cut because it is a succulent and it'll dry out and it could die back down the trunk. So it needs some sealant on there. To seal this cut up here, I want something a little more permanent than wood glue. So I went out and I bought some glue. This is general purpose glue. It's basically rubber cement. So it puts a nice watertight seal on here and it lasts through many, many rains. So I'll put that on now. And it dries clear, which is kind of nice. So I just put it on, spread it around with my finger. And you can see it's rubber cement because it's stringy like that. And it just rubs off your hands. So that's sealed now. Here is an overall look at the tree now. I think it's looking quite nice. I think it's a big improvement to the trunk. I do have a stub up here I could prune off a little more flush. So I'll do that. So I'll come up here and just cut that off like that. And I'll also seal that with the rubber cement. There we go. There. My money tree can go back on the bench and I'll get out the next tree that I'll be working on today. The next tree I'll be working on is my large American elm. My American elm has been growing really well this year. It leafed out nicely in summer and the shoots extended, but now it's kind of gone dormant. It's not really doing anything midsummer. I don't like to prune deciduous trees any later than kind of the end of July. That still gives them like August and September to recover before the leaves drop off in October. So that gives them lots of energy to store up for the winter. So I'm going to prune this today before the end of July. I should get a second flush of growth and it should be strong enough to go through the winter just fine. I'm going to start with a profile prune to the canopy, and I'm going to try the blue scissors. I don't know if they're strong enough to cut through this wood. I may have to use like pruners or something. The hedge clippers would probably work, but I'll try this first. So here I go. I'm going to look for a nice rounded shape. That's a little tough, but I'm taking a look at the tree now from the front view, and it's looking definitely more elm-like with that umbrella canopy up here. This is probably sort of the size the canopy would be with this trunk proportions. It looks quite natural, and that's how you would see them in nature with a canopy about that size. However, this tree is in training. I've got to grow my canopy out slowly, so I think I've got to take it back a little further. And I'm doing directional pruning when I do this, so I'm being kind of selective with my shoot direction, my future shoot direction. I don't think I have to go back too much further. I think, you know, once the leaves have dropped in fall, I can go in and do a more detailed pruning, but I think this has brought it back in size, kind of got it back under control, so it can grow a bit more for the rest of the summer. There is still many years of work to come on this elm, but at least it's looking like an elm now, which is, you know, a step in the right direction. So we'll just keep working on it over the years, and hopefully it'll survive and we'll get a nice elm bonsai. I can put the elm back on the bench now, and let's get out tree number 3. The next tree I'll be working on is also an American elm. This is the medium-sized one. The smallest size one died. It came out a little bit in spring, and then it really weakly, and then it died off. So I'm not sure what happened to that one, but I still have my medium-sized one and my large-sized one growing strongly. I'm going to use the same techniques using the blue scissors on my medium size, so here I go. Cutting through wood, getting that rounded canopy. Something like that. Okay, I think that's got the rough pruning done. Here's a look at the tree now. I'll rotate it around so you can see it from all directions. So I've got a little sucker coming up from the roots here that I'll remove. There's a lot of heavy scarring on it. And back to kind of the front somewhere here. So I'm going to remove this sucker that's coming up. Like that. I'm going to look for any crossing branches in here. I noticed, you know, there's one growing from up front that's going all the way to the back, so that can be pruned away. Like that. There's a whippy branch here that's growing up into the canopy. I'll prune that back to here. I'm just looking for obvious, you know, things that need correction. There's a dead branch here. That's too bad. That's got to be pruned out. That's right here. One of those trunks died off, so I'll just prune it right out. Like that. Cleans that up. I'm going to prune this back to here. Some back to here. Tip off here. Tip off here. Making it a little more compact again. And there's one going up here. I think that's got it. I think that's looking quite nice. Yeah, it always worries me that third elm died this spring, and I have no idea why. We had those giant American elms growing in our backyard, and they were healthy as anything. And then one year they all died, all the same year. They just never came out into leaf in spring, and it could be, you know, Dutch elm disease, I don't know. And I'm just worried about these trees that they might get it someday, but that's the risk of growing elm bonsai. Even the Chinese elms, they're resistant to Dutch elm disease, but they can still get it. So elms are a bit risky, but the reward is also worth it if they grow nice and healthy. The last tree that I'm going to be pruning up today is this red maple, that twisty one that I dug up from the front garden. I'm going to start the pruning today by pruning back these long shoots that have grown over the summer. So I'll prune them back fairly hard to like the first kind of leaf node here. So here I go. I'll cut this one back to here, taking that off. This one back to here, and this one back to here, like that. That gets the height down. Then we can go in and look at the structure of the tree. Here is a look at the tree now. I'll rotate it around. So it's got a very nice twisty trunk to it. There's some splits in the trunk here that I have no idea what they're from, if it's just normal growth or insect attacks or what it is. There's a split up here. I've just been spraying soap and water in it so it kills any insects that grow in, that are living in there. I'm not sure. It could be just the natural, you know, the bark splitting on it. I'm not sure what it is. But the tree's looking fairly healthy. I'm going to do a little leaf pruning. You can see these shoots come up and then you've got 2 leaves coming off. I'm going to take one of them out. So kind of reducing the foliage, but not totally stripping it of its leaves. So I'll take this one off. I'm going to take the inner one here off. Kind of getting more light to the interior of the tree. This one could come off. Take this one off, and this one off, and this one. So now you can see the trunk line from the front, which is kind of nice. I'm just looking at this structure. I've got, here I have 3 branches growing from one spot. I should reduce that back. I'm going to take this leaf off. I think I'm going to take the vertical one up in the center off here, like that. That way I've got these 2 fanning outwards. I've got a bud on the inside here. I'm going to take that off. I don't want that growing. Here I've got my division of my 2 trunk lines. I don't need a 3rd one growing in the middle here, so I'll take that out. There's a branch crossing here, or not a branch, a leaf. I can take that out, reducing it to 1 leaf on that internode. I should probably take this little one off here. I got 3 branches in one spot, so I'll take this little one off, like that. Yeah, I think that's it. That's the tree. I can give it a good watering, put it back on the bench. It's a very blustery day today. You can see the wind blowing. I've got to water my trees on the bench as they're drying out. We did get a little bit of rain last night, but not much, not enough to soak the trees. We might get some more today, but I better water just to make sure. I can't rely on the rain. We haven't had much, so not much lately. So yeah, my next task, water all the trees. I'll give you an update on my elm tree, the one I cut back really hard right here. So I sealed the top with that rubber cement, and you can see it's got new growth on this one shoot already. And around back here, there's a new bud that's formed right close to the cut point. So that's kind of exciting. I think it's going to branch out really nicely from the top here. I've got all the tinfoil on my trees today because it's quite sunny and it's quite hot out, so that'll protect them and keep them hydrated for the day. I have seen the first signs of life on the yucca forest. If we look around here, I'll zoom in. Right here you can see a new green shoot just coming out on the trunk there. I think that's the only thing happening. Oh, there's one back here too. It's a green little shoot coming out. Do I see any more? Might be one here. I'm not sure if that's a root or a shoot. Last time I hard pruned this tree back, I got shoots coming out of the root base here. So I had to prune those off because I don't want them growing new branches down there. But yeah, at least there's something happening. I just have to be patient. It's exciting to see the first signs of life on them after hard pruning the forest. The solar powered fan that Tom sent me is working really, really well. It just wails. When the sun comes out, it's like a jet engine. It just shoots the air out. It's fantastic. I've got my mister all apart down here. I finally got the right Torx bit to take it apart. So here's the pump. So I've got the pump out of the mister. I just have to take it apart, see if I can find anything that I can clean on the inside. If not, if the pump's just, you know, worn out, well, there's not much I can do. Everything in the greenhouse is doing very well. I did have a lot of scale insects, and that's because it's an enclosed space like this. So I've been dealing with more scale than if they were outside on the benches, but you know, that's just something you have to deal with when trees are in an enclosed space. But everything's looking really healthy in here, growing well, so I'm quite happy. The greenhouse is best in spring and fall when the temperatures outside are cool. You can kind of keep it heated, or it keeps it a little warmer, and that's when you really get the benefit of a greenhouse. It was nice to get some midsummer pruning done today, getting a few trees reduced from quite large canopies back to something a little more compact. That's all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.